Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, the story continues with Lythica and Hùng, along with the first unexpected surprise of the new year that Hùng has prepared for Lythica. Please stay with us until the very end of today's video, because that special moment will be revealed in the final scenes. Early in the morning, while the air still carried the chill of dawn, Lythica shouldered her basket of bitter melons and headed to the market. The familiar road led her through small winding turns, paths she had walked countless times during her quiet days of making a living. This year, the bitter melon garden had yielded fewer fruits, the vines were no longer as lush as before, so the basket on her back was not yet full. Even so, Lythica remained patient, walking slowly and calling out to sell, trading each kilogram of bitter melon for a modest amount of money. Every customer, every casual question, was met with her gentle, familiar voice. Life was still full of hardship, worries never truly easing, but Lythica had grown used to this rhythm, used to carrying everything on her own shoulders and quietly moving forward. As she sat selling her produce amid the flow of passers-by, Lythica's thoughts gradually drifted to tonight's meal, the family's year-end dinner. In her mind, she carefully calculated each dish, each ingredient, making sure everything would be just enough, neither too much nor too little. As long as there were dishes Hùng liked, as long as Tony could eat well and smile happily at the table, that was more than enough for her. She did not wish for lavish feasts or grand displays. All she hoped for was a moment when the family could gather together, peaceful and complete. When the market began to quiet down, Lythica packed up her things and carried the remaining bitter melons home. As soon as she stepped into the yard, she immediately began preparing the food. The small kitchen gradually warmed with the heat of the fire, the scent of glowing charcoal blending with the familiar aromas of cooking. The bitter melons were carefully stuffed with minced meat, one by one, the chicken was marinated and placed on the grill. These dishes were nothing new, having appeared many times on the family table, but each time Lythica prepared them with the same care and heartfelt devotion. As her hands worked quickly, her thoughts turned again to Hùng and Tony, who were likely attending the year-end party at Hùng workplace. She imagined Tony's excited face, and Hùng with his usual calm, reserved demeanor. To make use of the time while waiting for the food to cook, Lythica went out to the small patch of land behind the house where she grew vegetables. The plot was not large, but it was a place where she placed many of her hopes. Her hands were stained with mud, her back gradually damp with sweat, each breath blending into the quiet atmosphere of the final afternoon of the year. Despite the hard work, a rare sense of peace filled her heart. She quietly tended each row of vegetables, working while thinking about the future. She dreamed of one day having a piece of land closer to home, spacious enough for farming, with vegetables to harvest each day, and a more stable life for her small family. Those thoughts continued silently, gentle yet persistent, just like the way Lythica had been living through each day of her life. While Lythica quietly busied herself with each small task on the final day of the year, elsewhere, Hùng took Tony with him to attend his workplace's year-end gathering. The atmosphere there was more crowded than anything Tony had seen before. Bright lights, lively chatter, and unfamiliar faces made the boy feel a little overwhelmed at first. Tony stayed close to Hùng, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings, curious yet cautious. Hùng noticed this and gently placed a hand on his son's shoulder. He didn't say much, just a simple gesture, enough to make Tony feel reassured. This was the first time Tony had ever attended such a crowded event. Hùng did not expect his son to perform or stand out in any way, nor did he place any pressure on him. In Hung's mind, this gathering was simply a small experience, a chance for Tony to become familiar with a group setting, to learn how to greet others, listen, and gradually gain confidence among many people. He let Tony observe freely, answer simple questions when asked, and stayed nearby, ready to step in whenever his son needed support. Amid the adults' conversations, Hung's gaze would occasionally rest on Tony's face. Deep down, he thought about his son's future. He hoped Tony would grow up well-mannered and studious, become a decent person who knew right from wrong and lived with a sense of responsibility. The idea of Tony one day entering the police force did not stem only from the stability of the profession, but from Hung's wish for his son to have a solid path, to live for the community, and to uphold good values. These thoughts surfaced quietly, never spoken aloud, yet deep enough to remind Hung that he needed to try even harder for his family. As evening gradually fell, back at home the chicken had finished cooking, its aroma filling the small kitchen. The space grew warmer as the late afternoon light streamed through the window. Lythieuca stood in the kitchen, her hands still carrying the scent of charcoal smoke, occasionally glancing toward the lane outside. The sense of waiting was clear in her eyes, unhurried, yet full of longing. When familiar footsteps were heard, followed by Tony's loud call, "Mom," all the fatigue that had built up throughout the day seemed to melt away. Lythieuca turned around, a natural smile blooming on her face, as if that single moment was enough to erase all her hardships. The family soon gathered around the meal. The table was small, the dishes simple and familiar, yet neatly arranged and warmly inviting. Tony eagerly recounted what he had seen at the office, from the bright lights and long tables to the uncles and aunts who had talked with him. He spoke excitedly, sometimes even using his hands to illustrate, as if afraid of leaving out any detail. Hung listened while enjoying the bitter melon, his expression more relaxed after a long day. Sitting across from them, Lythieuca said little, simply watching the father and son, her gaze softening, her heart filled with quiet love. That meal was not luxurious, nor filled with flowery words or elaborate rituals. Yet it was the meal of a true family, where each person clearly felt the presence and bond of the others, in the final moments of a year slowly coming to a close. As the meal gradually came to an end and the laughter softened with the quiet rhythm of the final evening of the year, Hung stood up and silently went to prepare the fireworks. Every movement he made was careful and unhurried, as if he was carrying something very important in his heart, something that allowed no room for carelessness. To ensure safety, the whole family walked together to the rice field in front of the house to set off the fireworks. The small path leading to the field had long been familiar, the ground beneath their feet slightly damp as the night dew began to settle. The end-of-year air was cool, a gentle breeze sweeping across the empty fields after harvest, bringing with it a rare sense of stillness, the kind of quiet that only appears when a year is about to close. The yellow light from the house behind them spilled softly outward, not bright, but enough to illuminate the familiar faces, peaceful in a way that felt almost unreal. Lythieuca stood beside Hung, one hand holding Tony's. Tony's hand was small but warm, gripping his mother's tightly, as if afraid the moment might pass too quickly. Lythieuca gently tilted her head to look up at the night sky, where stars shimmered across the vast darkness. At that moment, her heart held no distant wishes, no grand dreams. What she longed for most was simply that in the new year, she could continue to be by Hung's side, by Tony's side, standing together like this, beneath the open sky, peaceful and whole. As midnight drew near, the world around them seemed to slow down. The fireworks were lit and burst into brilliance just as the final seconds of the old year slipped away. The radiant light tore through the darkness, reflecting across the wide fields and onto the upturned faces filled with emotion. The fireworks exploded loudly, blending with the night wind to create a moment that was both lively and sacred. Tony shouted with delight, and Lythieuca smiled instinctively. But Hung, bathed in that glow, suddenly grew still. He did not look up at the sky like Tony, nor did he follow the blooming bursts of light. Instead, he turned to look at Lythieuca. His gaze deepened, heavier than usual, as if carrying thoughts he had kept hidden for a very long time. Amid the rapid explosions of fireworks, a brief silence passed. long enough for Lythieuca to sense that something was different. Hùng slowly reached into his jacket pocket and took out a small box. The gesture was neither rushed nor showy. It felt like a decision he had contemplated for a long time, waiting for this exact moment to finally act. When the box was opened, inside lay a simple ring, unadorned, not overly dazzling, yet under the fireworks light, it glowed with a gentle, warm radiance. Hùng took a deep breath. In that instant, memories from the past flooded his mind. Once before, he had asked Lythieuca to marry him. Back then, he had been sincere, believing that their love alone would be enough. But things had not gone as hoped. Opposition and interference from his mother had left that proposal unfinished, leaving Lythieuca with deep wounds and Hùng with lingering regret. He had never forgotten that moment, never forgotten the helplessness of being unable to fully protect the woman he loved. And so, on this New Year's Eve, as the world shifted into a new beginning, Hùng knew he had to try again. Not to erase the past, but to make amends and reaffirm his choice. Amid the echoing fireworks and the cold night breeze brushing lightly past, he spoke. His voice was not loud, but it was clear and sincere, each word coming straight from his heart. He said he could not promise Lythieuca a life of wealth, nor could he give her the luxury many people dreamed of. But he promised that from this new year onward, and in all the years to come, he would not let her endure the same sadness as before, would not allow the past to repeat itself. He promised that from now on, every hardship in life would be faced together, no one would have to carry the burden alone. Lythieuca froze. In that moment, all the sounds around her seemed to fade away. The fireworks still blazed across the sky, the explosions still rang out, but all she could feel was the beating of her own heart and the steadiness in Hùng eyes. Old memories rushed back, joy and sorrow alike, along with the pain she had once hidden deep inside. Tears streamed down her face, not from hurt, but because at last, she felt the completeness she had been waiting for over so long. Lythieuca did not say much, nor did she need flowery words. She simply nodded gently, a soft yes that almost blended into the night wind, yet was enough for Hùng to understand, and enough to make that moment truly meaningful. Hùng gently slipped the ring onto Lythieuca's finger at the exact moment the new year began, while fireworks still lit up the night sky of the final evening of the old year, like a promise renewed, slow and quiet, but firm and unwavering. The fireworks continued to bloom brilliantly across the night sky, each burst of light following another, tearing through the darkness and reflecting over the wide fields ahead like waves of light spreading endlessly. The echoing sounds of fireworks blended with the chilly night wind, creating an atmosphere that was both lively and sacred, perfectly capturing the spirit of New Year's Eve. Tony stood beside the two adults, his face glowing with joy, an innocent smile clearly visible on his lips. He could not yet fully understand the meaning of the ring or the promises that had just been spoken, but in a very natural way, Tony could feel the happiness spreading around him. That happiness shone in his mother's eyes, in Hung's quiet yet warm presence, and in his own sense of safety as he stood between them. Tony looked up at the fireworks, then turned to look at Lythieuca and Hùng, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. He smiled without needing a reason, simply because this moment made him feel happy. To Tony, it was a special evening, one with dazzling fireworks, his mother's hand in his, Hùng standing close by, and a feeling of family more vivid than ever before. In the very first moments of the new year, beneath the lingering glow of fireworks still blossoming in the sky, Lythieuca and Hùng stood close together. Without saying a word, they each silently made a simple wish. Not distant dreams, nor ambitions beyond their reach. They wished only for good health, for peace, and to remain together like this. To walk through ordinary days side by side, to share both joys and worries, to raise Tony surrounded by love, for them, that was already something truly precious. The moment of midnight passed gently. The fireworks gradually became fewer, and the light in the sky slowly faded. The fields ahead returned to their familiar quiet, leaving only the distant echoes of the last explosions. The three of them remained standing there for a while longer, as if trying to hold on to the warmth that had just settled in their hearts. The year-end meal, though finished long ago, still left its aftertaste intact, the aftertaste of togetherness, of simple yet sincere moments. The end of the year-end meal also marked the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where love was spoken more clearly, where responsibility was embraced willingly, and where a family chose to continue forward together. The road ahead still held many unknowns, with challenges and worries yet to be named. But in that first moment of the new year, Lythica and Hùng both understood that as long as they had each other, they would no longer have to walk alone. Thank you to everyone who has continued to accompany the channel throughout this time, for listening and following the story of Lythica and Hùng. Please stay tuned for the next developments in the upcoming episodes. And if you can, tomorrow don't forget to leave a comment wishing Lythica and Hùng happiness, as a meaningful New Year's blessing for them. Wishing everyone a joyful New Year filled with good health, peace, and success on your own journey.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người nha. Tạm biệt mọi người, hẹn gặp lại ở video sau.